going over some new features that we have in ProjectTeam.com. Some of these features you might have seen already in the system because we released them a couple weeks ago. We're just getting around to the webinar now. And then some others we're going to be showing you are actually coming out this weekend. So new features either that you can see in the system now, and then I'll make it clear which ones are coming this weekend. As a quick overview, the features that you will be seeing in this webinar are going to be primarily focused on workflows, workflow reports, distribution lists, file management, and that's going to include uploading folder structures and then also downloading folder structures so you can zip download that information, copying information, and then renaming other files that are in the system. Before I get started, I just want to do some administrative items here. We are social, so you can follow us on some of the major social networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We post pretty often, and a lot of sneak peeks and new features are posted on those social networks. If you're following along on the webinar on Twitter, you can use the hashtag ProjectTeam Webinar to follow along, and then ask questions on Twitter there in between this area, and then once we get into the Q&A, I'll be able to answer those questions as well. Again, as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded. So if you miss it today, or if you want more information on the webinar or a copy of the webinar, just let me know and I will be sending that over to you. So today's agenda. Today we're going to be going over workflow setup. So I'll show you how to set up a new workflow. First, I'll be going over kind of what is workflow and how do we as ProjectTeam.com interpret what workflow is. You'll be able to see workflow on your forms. And then more than that, you'll actually be able to see reports off of the workflow on your form. So yes, it's great to have workflow and say, okay, I have an RFI and I want to start a workflow that follows the process. But really, the most important thing to me is now that I have workflow on my RFIs or some forms, I want to see where each one of those forms currently sits so I have a better understanding of where my project is. After workflows, we will be getting into distribution lists. That's different than what we have in the system currently called share groups, and I'll explain the difference. And then we'll get into file management and Q&A. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about here is workflow. And the point of workflow really is to just keep everybody on track. So what is workflow? As I kind of mentioned before, workflow is a sequence of processes for which a piece of work passes from initiation to completion. So I'll actually show you in a couple of minutes here how to set up a workflow, what it means to define who can start the workflow, what it means to put people in a step of the workflow, and then what it means to kind of pass the workflow from step to step until it actually becomes done or completed. You'll be able to apply workflows to forms, files, and folders within ProjectTeam.com. And then you'll be able to track the progress of each document in workflow through reporting, and that's what I'll show you in a little bit. On a typical construction project, there's a lot of information that is flowing from person to person or entity to entity or even company to company. In this little graph here, I have a couple of different companies, an architect, a project manager, the owner company, a supplier, a subcontractor, all showing all of the different information, images, PDFs, reports, documents, RFIs. All of that information is flowing from one person to another, but it can be kind of a chaos in construction at times. The point of a workflow is to organize that chaos and then follow a defined process. So once we set up a workflow, we can say, okay, I want every one of my, say, RFIs or every one of my submittals or whatever it is to start off from my supplier. I want it to, or supplier or subcontractor, but I want it to start at one place and then immediately go to my project manager and then maybe to my CM and then maybe to my architect or whatever it is. But the point of a workflow is to define a process and make sure that every one of your documents follows that process. After we have workflows created, one of the benefits is in ProjectTeam.com, not only can you create those workflows, but then you can create reports off of the workflows. In our previous webinars, we've showed you how to create reports, simple reports off of some of the basic documents. You'll also be able to create reports off of custom documents, and that's true with workflows as well. If you create a custom document, you'll also be able to create a workflow and apply that to that custom document. So really, there's no limit to the amount of workflows or reports that you can create off of your information. When we talk about reporting for workflows, really we're talking about two different cases. The first report type that I have shown here is a workflow summary. You'll see that I have RFI1, RFI2, RFI3, RFI4, and then this should be RFI5 here. But I can see all of my different RFIs and then what step they currently are sitting. So RFI1 is currently at step 5 of 5, which means it's done. RFI2, step 3 of 5, which means it's overdue because the due date was previous to today's date. RFI3 is done, it's at step 5 of 5, etc. So not only can I create the workflows off of each individual document, I can now create a report and see where each document is. And if I'm interested in saying, wait a second, RFI1 is done, 3 is done, 4 is done, 2 should have been done. It looks like it was due on 8/8. Why isn't it done? What we can do in the reporting area is either set up a separate report, or we could actually create a linked report back to our summary report. If I was going to look at why is RFI2 not done, I can open that thing up and see the workflow history of RFI2. So here I've opened this document up. I can see RFI2, light fixtures in the main hallway, might be the subject of that RFI. I can see here that step 1 got started by Josh on 8/5. It got moved to step 2, which was passed by Tony. Went to 3, which was actually failed by Sally, and back to step 2. So it looks like some reason here it got failed, and that's what's causing this overdue. So by linking your different workflow reports together, you can get a better understanding of the whole picture on your project. And not only is this limited to RFIs, but this could be applied to any of your other documents: field reports, RFIs, submittals, contracts, change orders, whatever documents you're keeping in the system, you can apply workflows to it and then apply reports. So I'll actually, in the demo, I'm going to go over a workflow summary report, and then I'm actually going to go over a workflow history report, at least show you those two things, maybe even set one up from scratch just to show you how easy it is to do that. The next topic I want to go over, and which I'm going to demo here, is distribution lists. So distribution lists are going to allow you to share information very quickly, and it's going to be it's similar to how email works. So in email, I can either share to, if I have a submittal, I can attach, the submittal PDF to an email, and then I can share it to a project manager, and then I can share it to an architect, then I can share it to a subcontractor, and the same for a supplier. I could do 4 different emails if I want to. In email, you can do something called a distribution list. And now in ProjectTeam.com, you can also create distribution lists. Distribution lists are going to allow you to put people from different companies together into a group, and then just share one time to that list, and then everybody in that group will have access to that document. Okay, so in the past, we had multiple shares. Now we have one distribution list. And my example here is, here's my submittal team, or whatever you want to call it. I just share my submittal to the submittal team, and now my subcontractor, my architect, my supplier, my project manager, whoever it is on the job site, now has access to that information. So distribution lists are going to allow you to very quickly share information instead of, and actually save you a bunch of clicks. Alrighty, so that's enough of the PowerPoint area of the presentation. Now I actually want to get into a quick demo of some of the features that I kind of went over here, and also show you some of the other things that are coming soon, planned for this weekend. If I go into my project, so I'm in ProjectTeam.com now, I see that I'm in the reporting area. ProjectTeam.com does come out of the box with reports. You do not need to download or pay for some third-party application. Everything is built into the system, which is really nice. I'm actually going to get out of reports and show you how to set up a new workflow and kind of go through the steps there. And then I'm going to show you some of the reports that we've created here off of that workflow information. That's going to match what I kind of showed on the PowerPoint. If I go to the project homepage and then go into project information, I see some information showing up here. I can, on the top menu here, I see I have different options. I'm actually going to click into workflows. I see a list of my different workflows, and I'm going to start or create a new workflow. Once I create a new workflow, I'm at the workflow setup page. So I can see there's a couple fields here that are just asking me for some simple information before I actually get to the steps of the workflow. I can name my workflow anything I want. So I can say, here's my webinar RFI workflow. And then the description of this workflow might be, this is a sample for the webinar. Available for, here I can define which document types I want to make this workflow available. So right now I'm going to say just for request for information, but I could choose multiple different document types if I want to, if I want all of those document types to be able to follow the same process. For now, I'm just going to say RFIs. And then I can define who can start the workflow. If you remember in the definition of our workflow, we said from initiation to completion. This is just defining who can actually initiate or start the workflow. If I put my cursor into this field, I see all of my different users and groups here. I'm just going to say anybody on my project for right now, although I could limit this, anybody on my project can start the workflow. I don't have to just pick one. I could actually pick many, but since I have a group right now called all users on project, I don't need to pick any more. So this is good. I have a workflow now. I could I could save this document, but really I don't have any steps created. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a step, and it's going to give me a quick wizard. The first is going to say, what do you want step one? So I have step one here, the label to be for that. And I'll just say, initial approver. Okay. Send to for action. I can click into here and I see all my users and distribution lists now available for me to send it at the first step. Right now, I'm just going to use my name, but I could also use maybe Walt Freeze as well. Okay, so now I have two people at step one. I can define who must approve. So I can say any versus all. If I say any, that means either Josh or Walt would be able to approve this before moving to the next step. If I say all, that means Josh and Walt are going to have to approve it. For now, because I don't really care who approves this, I just need one of them to, I'm going to say any. And then for the days to approve, I can say 5. This is going to take into account your working versus non-working days. That's another area of the system that we can set up. So if we don't usually work on Saturdays and Sundays, when I apply a workflow, it is going to skip over those days. Also, if I have special events like a Christmas or a New Year's or some other holiday, it'll also skip those as well. I can type in my instructions here if I want to. So I can say, the first step, please add attachments. Okay. And then I can also copy for information, but I'll skip that for now. Okay. I can say add in new. That's going to add that step to the bottom of my screen, which you can see here. And then open up my step 2. Here I'm going to go to this one a little bit faster here so I can just work through this and then actually apply it to a document. So here I'm going to say this step label will be a final reviewer, because I'll just have a 2-step workflow here. It's going to be sent to Josh, so I'm going to type in Josh, who must approve. I'm going to say any, 4 days to approve, final approver, please print and put in folder, whatever I want to do there, and then also copy I'm going to skip. So now I have my entire workflow created. I've added all of my steps, and in this case I just have 2 steps, and really it's just going from step 1 Josh to step 2 Josh, but you could apply this to any of your other users on your projects. And then I'm going to save that. Now I have this new webinar RFI workflow applied to requests for information, and anybody on my project can start it. That means if I go over to an RFI now, and I'll go ahead and create a new RFI, and I'll just call this my webinar RFI. The question is, what time does the webinar start or something like that? Okay, and I can simply save this document. Now I have a new request for information created in the system. If I scroll down, I do see a workflow panel. I can click on that, and not only do I see my standard RFI workflow, I also see that brand new webinar RFI workflow created here as well. This is a sample for the webinar. I'm going to actually click on that to start the workflow. And once I do, you'll see this panel kind of opens up. Here I see a visual of the workflow that I just created, right? So I have a two-step workflow, the initial, which is spelled wrong, initial approver, and then my final reviewer. It's currently, because it already got started on today's date, got pushed to step 1, which is currently in the pending state. I can see that Josh started this at this date. Now it's at step 1. If I want, I can take action on this thing. I can say pass, take action, and it moves to step 2. So now I can see step 1 got passed. So really it's nice because you do have a nice visual here of what's actually going on. You'll notice though, if I scroll to the top of my screen, because I am the one that is in this step, if I looked at my RFI, it was just kind of a white document. If I scroll up now, because I am in this workflow, I do see a big green banner showing me exactly what I'm supposed to do. And you'll notice in this second line here, those are my custom instructions that I set up. So the workflow tool is a very powerful tool because it allows you to define a process and ensure that every one of your documents of a certain type follows that process. Now, since I have this RFI, I can see, that I'm supposed to do something. So it says webinar RFI requires my action. Here's my instructions. And then I could simply take action right from here. I don't need to scroll down to the workflow, although I can do that, but I'll just take my action and I can pass it or I can fail it. One thing that I will note, because this was an improvement by coming from another one of our clients here, is not only can I pass or fail, but if I do choose the fail option, and maybe this is a bad example because I only really have 2 steps, not only can I fail it back to one step previous, I can actually fail it to any other step. So right now I'm at step 2. I have to pretty much fail it back to step 1. But if I was at step 5, I could fail it back to 4, 3, 2, or even 1. So I can kind of choose where I want to put this thing back to. Okay, and obviously I can apply my notes as well. Okay, so I can take action on that. So that is setting up a workflow and then viewing that workflow on an actual document. And for this example, we chose a simple request for information. Now what I want to do is go over to the reporting area and show you how I can run reports off of that same information. So if I go to this report at the top right, it's going to take me to that area that we were initially, which was this reporting area here. I can see I have 4 default folders. I have system reports. These are things that we give out of the box. The first day you log into ProjectTeam.com, you immediately have a bunch of system reports. So if I go into payment applications, I can see a detail report, but that's, that was covered on another webinar, so I won't go too deep into that. But you have a bunch of different reports showing up here: action items, RFIs, directives, drawings, whatever it is. I also have 3 other folders. So I have a My Reports. This is showing me all of the reports that I want to track, but I don't necessarily want anybody else to be able to view that. So if I look at my custom RFI report, for example, here's showing me all of my different RFIs. I can put in graphs and different charts into this report if I want. It's very easy for me to create. Again, it's all built into ProjectTeam. Really, it's just drag and drop, but I can see some nice information showing up here. The company reports is anything that I want my company on this project to be able to also view. So if I open this up, I actually do see the 2 reports that I'm going to want to show you in a second here, the workflow summary and workflow history report. So that's the company reports is my company on the project, and then the project reports is anybody on the project, no matter what company they're from, will be able to access these project reports. So the first report that I want to show you is the workflow summary report. So if I click into that, it'll refresh my page here, and now I can see exactly kind of what I showed on that on the PowerPoint on my screen. So here I have the workflow summary report. It shows me all of the different RFIs, okay, all of them here. I even have that RFI webinar RFI that I created just a second ago. It shows me that it is currently in progress, and then just like we would expect, I can see that it's at step 2 of 2. In this workflow report right now, I can see, some of these say step 2 of 2, some say step 2 of 3, but I don't see other information. So, if I was just looking at this and I didn't know what was going on, I might be a little bit confused right now. Why are some 2 of 2? Why are some 2 of 3? What's the difference there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually edit this report to kind of show you how easy it is to edit these things. So I'm going to pull this up in edit mode. And what I want to include in this report now is the workflow name of each one of these documents, because I have a status, I have a current step, you can see that here, and then I have the label for the current step, but I really want to know what the workflow name is. So I'm just going to click in here and say I want to insert a column before. It's going to ask me what column I want to insert. I can just find the information that I want on this left-hand side. The information that I want is actually the workflow name. So what is each workflow called? I'm going to pull that over here. I can match the case here. So this looks like it's bigger text, and this is really small here. So I'm going to actually take this and paint that to be the same format as my previous field. And then I can do this here. I'm just going to say workflow name. Again, it looks a little bit different, so I'm just going to paint the format to match that, and that looks good. Now, if I play this report, or I actually run this report, I can see that I have information here about each one of these different workflows. So if I go to page 2, I can see this RFI, webinar RFI is in progress, step 2 of 2, and the workflow that it's running right now is the webinar RFI workflow. That explains why it's at step 2 of 2 versus some of these that say step 3 of 3 or 2 of 3, which is the standard RFI workflow. So I can see that I'm running 2 different workflows on my document. This information on these reports can be manipulated and formatted however you want. If you want to add your colors, it's very easy to do that. We can make these things pretty, but this gives you kind of a basic example of how to run a workflow summary report. Again, summary is showing me all of my different document types and just the top level information. If I want to get a little deeper and I want to say, okay, cool, well, I have the summary, but I want to know what the history of each one of these documents is. I can actually run that report as well. So here I'm going to click on the workflow history of RFIs, and now it's showing me all of the different workflow steps that have hit each one of my documents. So I can scroll down here. Here's the webinar RFI that we created earlier. I can see that that thing was started by Josh. I can see that it was passed by Josh, skipped Walt, and now it's pending at Josh at step 2. All of the dates, all of the notes, all of that information is coming over. And not only can I see this on a one-by-one document basis, but I can scroll down here and say, okay, my moment frames connections RFI is currently sitting at Austin. My webinar RFI is at Josh, and I can see the workflow history of that. Is anything skipping or passing? If we wanted to, we could go in here and say, you know, anything that fails, maybe that's really important to me. I want to say fail. I want to have a big, bold, red, text on there to show me exactly what's going on. I can highlight the different rows. Really, you don't have much limitation in reporting when you're creating the different reports or even dashboards. And I could create some really nice dashboards off of this information as well. For example, and without going too far into it, I can show you just a quick submittal dashboard here. And this is kind of getting off topic from the workflows, but it's the same premises. So I could go in here and say, I want to create a dashboard off of workflow information, and all that is going to be true. I could create bar charts, line charts. I can, change this to different kinds of line charts, whatever you guys like, whatever looks best to you, and whatever makes sense for the data that you're displaying, you can manipulate and change your dashboards. And you can see how easy it was for me to do that. I can literally just kind of click, and then I can drag and drop that information around if I want to as well. All right, so that is a quick overview of the workflow that is in the system now, and also creating reports off of that workflow information. So those things were released even a couple feature releases ago. You should be able to go in there and try those out. And for the new users, obviously, when you guys log in and sign up, you would have that information immediately. Another feature that you would have is the distribution list. So now if I go back to the project homepage and go into my information, I see there is an option here to create distribution lists. So I'm actually going to click distribution lists. I see that I have one distribution list created for me already. So let's go check that out. If I wanted to create a new DL list, I could just say add new, and it's going to ask me for the name. And then I'll be able to actually add the users. But since I already have one, I'm actually going to click right into it. This distribution list shows me the list name of all, submittal and RFI team. The description of that, again, is just all members of the RFI team and the submittal team. And then you'll see the list membership includes users from different companies. I actually have 2 companies on my project right now working together. Actually, I have more, but 2 companies that I want to talk about in this distribution list. I have ABC Construction and then Mighty Engineering, and Wayne Frias from Mighty Engineering is that person from another company. He's just one of my subcontractors. It's very easy, and I'll show you how easy it is to bring on other contractors into your project. And then based on feedback from some of our other clients, we've actually even made that easier, and that's something that we're excited to release this weekend, which is just a very quick invite button on the project directory, so you don't need to go through a formal invitation process that might require emails and things like that. So here I have Josh, Patrick, and Wayne, all part of my company, all part of this distribution list, even though they're part of different companies. I can go to one of my RFIs, so I can say this webinar RFI right now. Right now I see the axis of that is Josh and Walt, but I actually want to share that out to my submittal distribution team, or my RFI and submittal distribution team. So what I'm going to say is I want to share this information. I could go through and individually check these different users, which I had to do before, but you'll notice there is a button on the top of your screen now to say Apply Distribution Lists. It'll show me all the lists that I have access to. If I click on the question mark, I can see every user that's in that list. I'll say, yep, that's the one that I want, and apply that. Now when I scroll down, I see everybody that was in that list is automatically checked. So maybe it's a pretty simple example here where I only have 1 or 2, but there's a lot of companies using the system right now that have 100 different users, or 100 or more different users on a project, and it can be tedious to go through and check one by one. So the benefit of a distribution list is you create one list, and then it's going to do all the checking for you. All I have to do is check once and then say share. And then you'll see on the right-hand side here, the group access is showing that Wayne Frias from Mighty Engineering, now has access. Patrick now has access, even though you can see that they've never actually been back and viewed the document. Okay, so a distribution list is going to allow you to share information quickly. And if you notice, if you caught it when I was actually going through a workflow, you'll be able to apply distribution lists in the steps of a workflow as well. So instead of having to say, okay, I want Josh and Ty and Patrick and Wayne all individually to be at step 1 of a workflow, you can just say, I want the submittal and RFI team to be at step 1. I want them to review it, check for spelling errors, check the attachments, whatever, and then I want to pass it to the management team or whatever it is, and then you can just do that at the group or list level. The next feature that I want to go over here is about file management. So if I go into actually, what I'm going to do first is I kind of talked about it when I was talking about Walt for this distribution list, is the project directory. So if I go to my project homepage, I can click into the project directory. Here I can see all of the different companies that are working with me on the project. Okay, so I got ABC Construction, American Seating, all these different companies are working with me, and I want to track their information. Some of these people are users, some of these people are not users. I want to be able to invite these people to connect with me if they're not already in the system, so that I can start working with them effectively. If I go to the Contacts tab now, you'll see I do have a little user check showing up next to each one of these people that are actually users. Users can log into ProjectTeam.com. You'll notice that these people are pretty much the same people that are showing up when I'm trying to share information. So if I have an RFI, I can actually share that to Bob or Andy or Ty. All those people are actually users. They'll be able to log in, use their credentials, and get into ProjectTeam.com. Below them, I have my users, but I also have all of these other people. These people that have the invite button next to them, I'm not connected to them on my project. In the past, what I had to do is share information over to these people. So this Stephen Bucknam, I had to actually share information over. I had to pick an RFI or pick a folder and say, I want to share this, and that would bring him into the system. The only problem was, well, I had to pick something to share, and sometimes I didn't have anything to share. So this new release here, all you have to do is go through your project directory and then click the invite button. That's going to actually send them an invitation. It'll connect them to your project. It won't necessarily share anything unless you've already shared to groups like the all users on project, but they'll be able to get into your project, view that information, and then you can start to collaborate with them. It's a great way and a very easy way now to get others into your project so you can start to collaborate. if I scroll down, I can very easily see who I need to invite still, and then who is users. And I see Wayne Frias and then others that I can invite. Alrighty. That's also a view available if I go to any of these other people. So if I say, let's see here, this American Seating. If I go back to the businesses, I can see American Seating here. I have addresses and contacts in my project directory. And if I'm looking at the contacts, I can actually see that all three of these people are not yet users or connected to me, but I can very easily go through and invite each one of these. Again, that would send them an email to connect with me on the project. Alrighty. The next thing that I want to show, and so this project invitation, this is actually something coming this weekend. If you guys are already users and checking that out, this will be this weekend. If I go, the last thing that I want to show here in this webinar is the file management updates. So if I go into the files area, as we know, we have two main folders, the project files and then the form attachments. Project files is just an area that I can go and I can start to add folders. I can add as many folders and subfolders as I want, okay? And then I can drag and drop my different files into these subfolders. Okay, so I can go look here. I can see architect, new folder 1. I can actually take this and I can just, I have a couple of files on my desktop here. I can just drag those over and you'll see that those things update pretty fast. Okay. If I go back to the root folder, I also have my form attachments. This is showing me all of my different document types. So I can click into, say, request for information. I can see all of the different RFIs that I have. I can even see that webinar RFI that I created earlier. It automatically created me a folder for this because my document exists. So that's really nice because you can kind of keep things organized. Then I can go into here and I can see, obviously, because I didn't upload anything at the time of creating this, I don't see any files here. But there's those two root folder areas that you can explore. The point of me going into this area for now is I have these folders. And in the past, I could say I want to add a folder. And I could say this is folder 1. And I could create that. And then I could go into folder 1 and I could say, well, I want to add another folder called subfolder 1. Create that. Add subfolder 2, and so on. You can see that it's pretty easy for me to do this, but if I had 100 different folders, it might take a while, and maybe I don't have time for that because I'm trying to get out to my job site. What I can do now is, instead of having to go through one by one and add those folders, I actually have this project documents folder on my desktop. If I look at this, I can see I have 9 different subfolders within that project documents folder. If I go into any of these, financial folder, I can see I have 2 other folders, a budget and a project accounting. If I look at my budget folder, I have more folders. So I can see that I have a pretty deep folder structure already created on my desktop. If I was trying to recreate this in ProjectTeam, I could very easily do it. It would just require some clicks. I'd say add folder, create a new folder, add folder, create a new folder, and type the names of those folders in. Now what I can do is I can just take this folder, drop that right in there. You'll see the progress bar is showing me all of my different files. And then now I have that entire folder structure already created. So all I had to do is drag and drop that from my desktop right into the system. Now if I click into project documents, I see all of those subfolders. If I click into financial, I see those subfolders, budgets, I see those, etc. I had an entire folder structure on my desktop. All I had to do was drag and drop that to the system, and the system kind of took care of uploading everything for me. Okay, well, that's great. The next thing that is important here is getting that information out of the system. So I've just uploaded an entire folder structure from my desktop into the system, but there are times where I need to archive some data. I need to download information just because I need to get it onto my computer. I need to work on it, whatever it is. All I have to do now is click on the dropdown and say I want to download this project documents as a zip. It'll automatically start to download on my machine, and you can see that's pretty quick here. Now I can open that up, and now I've downloaded this entire zip folder. So I can say, I look at financial, budgets, estimating, whatever it is. All of that information is now in the folder structure as well. So I was able to very quickly upload an entire folder structure, and then I'm able to very quickly download a folder structure. And this one didn't have any files in it, but if I go to the project files area, on the right-hand side, I can see different folders have files in it. So I can see this one here, the subcontractors actually has 9 files. I can say I want to download this zip. It's going to download to my machine. It takes a couple seconds. I can open this thing up, And now I can see if I go in here, I start to have my different files and folders. So not only can I zip download all of the folders, but it also is going to include all of the files. So you really get a good archive of that information. I'm actually going to go into the architect and show you this one last thing. So now that we have information in our system, a lot of times it's very easy if we're out on the job site to take a picture on our phone or take a picture on our lab or our tablet or something like that and upload that to a field report or to the file management area, just because I'm trying to keep all that information. I'm uploading images, I'm uploading PDFs, etc. In the past, I actually needed to, if I wanted to rename this progress photo, I would say, okay, well, I need to go to the properties, which would open up this page. I could edit this and rename it. Now, though, to make this process a lot quicker, all you have to do is hover. You do see this little pencil icon. I can click the pencil. It's going to give me a little image here. I can say this is progress photo webinar JPEG. Okay, it's automatically going to rename that, reorder that based on the alphanumeric characters. I can click on that, and now I have my image in here that is actually renamed. If I can upload new versions of this information, etc., and it is going to take on those renames. So it's very easy for me now to get information into the system. And now, instead of having to work offline and do it on your desktop, I can actually start to rename information right in the system very quickly. I don't have to go through. You'll see that pencil icon is just immediately available for me wherever I go. Okay. And then the last thing that I want to show here, and this was a request from a client in the Pennsylvania area, is the ability to copy the rename. Just working in files in general is something that a lot of users do. So the ability to upload a folder structure, the ability to zip download, the ability to rename files, that's all really important and really user-friendly. It makes using the system a lot easier. The other thing that I can do now is I have this progress photo from the webinar. I actually want to copy this over to another folder structure. So I can go through my folder structure here and say that I have my project documents. Here's all of those project documents that I looked at before. I can look in that financial photos, or I can actually just put it right into this 06 photos folder, which would make more sense. So I'm moving, or I'm actually copying this progress photo webinar from new folder 1 in the architect folder over to the project documents photos folder. So I'll say copy that. I get a little dialog here that says my copy has started. And usually if the file is not too big, if I go back over here and look at project documents and photos, now I see that new photo also in this folder. So it's a very easy way to kind of copy photos from one folder to another and kind of move things around. All right, we're about 40 minutes into this webinar, and that's almost all the time that I want to take. I just want to show you one more thing that I'm excited about because I use this feature a whole bunch, but it is our HTML rich text editor. In the past, we had a text editor that was good, but not great. Now, when I go into a form that has a rich text field, for example, if I go into like the email form, I can, and this is kind of talked about here, I can sweep emails from my Outlook or my Gmail right into the system, and we can set up aliases for these different email addresses. So I can say I want to add a new email here, and maybe this is just something that I don't want to sweep from my email, but I actually want to just type in. You'll see here that this does look a little bit different for me. I have a lot more options here, and we've added some functionality. If I have an email here that I want to copy over, okay, so I actually do have an email. I'm going to take, let's see here. This email here is a lot of information all in one. So it's a lot of text and a lot of links and stuff like that. I'm going to copy this and just paste that over to my system. And ProjectTeam.com is going to recognize that it's pulling from Microsoft Office. So it's Microsoft Word, Outlook, etc. Reorganize the different code pieces and put this into a nice, clean format. So here I have all of that information showing me really nicely on this document. I've just copied and pasted. It kept all of my formatting. So I have links still in here. I have all of the colors. I have information about dates, the bold, whatever it is. All of this information is copied right over from my email right into my system here, which is really nice. Not only can I can do that, but now I can edit things if I want to, because if I want to put some more information or bold or highlight different information, or I could have created this from scratch. Not only does this rich text editor work on emails, but it also works on any other document type that you have access to, and it's just a custom field, so we can add this wherever. And then some of the other really nice features is, if I want to go to make a, let's see here, do I have a meeting minutes form? I do have a meeting minutes form. If I want to add a custom field, the field that I'm going to add here is actually my multi-line rich text. So I'm kind of moving quickly here because we got to the end of the webinar, but I'm creating a rich text field. It's a completely custom that I'm putting onto this other form called my meeting minutes. So I'm just going to choose multi-line rich text is that new field that we're talking about. I'm going to call this all meeting notes. I already have some other meeting note fields that I might have on here, but this is good because I want to show this example. Go to step 3. Here I can say everybody on my project has access to this new field that I'm adding to the meeting minutes. The key point there is you can have field level access on your forms. It's not like they get all or nothing. You can actually keep information private if you want to. But now if I create a new meeting, I can see that this text box is on the bottom. So I was able to add that brand new custom field to this document. And instead of working, I mean, this is a pretty nice window here, but if I'm writing a lot of information, you know, if I'm typing a lot and I can put bullet points or whatever I want in here, but you know, I kind of have to go into this small square. If I want to make this big, I can actually pull this up to my entire screen, so it takes over everything. So if I'm doing a presentation, or if I'm doing, you know, if I'm in the middle of a meeting and I don't care about all the other fields of my form, I just want to pull this up in a big screen, I can do that. And now here I have, you know, whatever I want to do. And then once I'm done, I can shrink that back to the bottom. Now it's here. I can save this meeting minute, etc. So it's a really nice way to, you know, blow up the notes area, make that the main focus of your page. I don't have to worry about anything else. I can type a lot all day long and then save this thing, and it's really easy. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that is the really what I have to go over on this webinar. So I'm going to pull up my presentation again. We talked about some of the things that are coming soon, at least this weekend coming soon. So you should expect those coming very soon. In the next webinar, we'll be going over some of the things that we released this weekend, and then what's coming in, I guess it's August already, so September timeframe. If you guys need any help with anything, obviously, if you want to set up a one-on-one demo, if you're new to ProjectTeam.com, or you want to get more in-depth than anything that we went over today, please contact sales@ProjectTeam.com. And then existing users with specific questions, you can email support@ProjectTeam.com, and we'll be happy to help you. Alrighty. And now it's time for the Q&A area. So I have a couple of questions here showing up from a couple different users. The first one is, so even though that you have the workflow name in the report, it would be nice to also have either the revision number or date modified of the workflow name. Okay, so that would be an enhancement request. So what you can do in your workflows right now is you can add a bunch of information. If I actually go back here, just to show really quickly, in the reports, there is a lot of data source information that I can pull into my different reports. Okay, so I can say I want to create a new report. I can name this my workflow webinar report, put it into my reports, the categories here, and I can type in workflow, and I see I have these two options. If I were to add both of these options and go to sorts, I can see I have a whole bunch of different information that I can add to my workflow reports, either from the history standpoint or the summary standpoint, and you can kind of mix and match those fields as you want. Yes, okay, another question is, can I paste images into a rich text? So if I go to that meeting minutes document, okay, so I have that new rich text field on my meeting note here. I'm going to actually blow this up, and I'm going to go over to my emails and look for an email that actually has a question on it, or an image in it. Okay, so let's see here. But yes, the answer to the question is yes, I could attach, or I could copy and paste. So here's one from our services people. If I copy this in here, actually let's do this. I can copy that in, and you can see that the images are coming through. So I have this information here. I have this the signature logo as well. All of that is in my rich text, and I could just save this if I fill in my subject. But to answer the question, yes, you could pull in different images. And then will that print? Yeah, so if I print out this information, if I do a simple print, if I say add new, and then obviously if I screen print this, right, and I say I want to Control P this, if I look at this information, I do see those images in there. If I'm pulling this into a template, then there are some different pieces of information that you would need to include in your template. But no matter if they are attachments to the forms or whatever, you would be able to see those different images. As long as they're in the form, you'd be able to see that information in your print. All right. Do we have any last questions here before I close it out? So we're about 3:50 right now. I have recorded this webinar, so I'll send this out to everybody just so you have a copy of it. And if you want to forward that on to anybody else, you certainly can. But otherwise, I will follow up with some of you that have specific questions after this webinar. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to us again at sales@projectteam.com, or if you're an existing user at support@projectteam.com. And again, we'll be very happy to help. Thank you all for your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you and talking to you soon. Bye.